Welcome to our series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Today, the Body, Part 1. From Sri Aurobindo. The perfection of the body, as great a perfection as we can bring about by the means at our disposal, must be the ultimate aim of physical culture. Perfection is the true aim of all culture, the spiritual and the psychic, the mental, the vital, and it must be the aim of our physical culture also, if our seeking is for a total perfection of the being. The physical part of it cannot be left aside. For the body is the material basis. The body is the instrument which we have to use. Sariram kalu dharma saranam, says the old Sanskrit adage. The body is the means of fulfillment of dharma. And dharma means every ideal which we can propose to ourselves, and the law of its working out and its action. A total perfection is the ultimate aim which we have set before us. For our ideal is the divine life, which we wish to create here, the life of the Spirit fulfilled on earth, life accomplishing its own spiritual transformation, even here on earth in the conditions of the material universe. That cannot be unless the body too undergoes a transformation, unless its action and functioning attain to a supreme capacity and the perfection which is possible to it, or which can be made possible. I have already indicated in a previous message a relative perfection of the physical consciousness in the body and of the mind, the life, the character which it houses, as no less than an awakening and development of the body's own native capacities, a desirable outcome of the exercises and practices of the physical culture to which we have commenced to give in this ashram a special attention and scope. A development of the physical consciousness must always be a considerable part of our aim. But for that, the right development of the body itself is an essential element. Health, strength, fitness are the first needs. But the physical frame itself must be the best possible. A divine life in a material world implies necessarily a union of the two ends of existence, the spiritual summit and the material base. The body itself must reach a perfection in all that it is and does, which now we can hardly conceive. It may even in the end be suffused with the light and beauty and bliss from the beyond, and the life divine assume a body divine. In the past, the body has been regarded by spiritual seekers rather as an obstacle, as something to be overcome and discarded, than as an instrument of spiritual perfection. and a field of the spiritual change. It has been condemned as a grossness of matter, as an insuperable impediment, and the limitations of the body as something unchangeable, making transformation impossible. This is because the human body, even at its best, seems only to be driven by an energy of life which has its own limits and is debased in its smaller physical activities by much that is petty or coarse or evil. The body in itself is burdened with the inertia and inconscience of matter, only partly awake, and although quickened and animated by a nervous activity, subconscient in the fundamental action of its constituent cells and tissues and their secret workings. Even in its fullest strength and force and greatest glory of beauty, it is still a flower of the material inconscience. The inconscient is the soil from which it has grown, and at every point opposes a narrow boundary to the extension of its powers and to any effort of radical self-exceeding. But if a divine life is possible on earth, then this self-exceeding must also be possible. It is quite true that the surrender and the consequent transformation of the whole being is the aim of the yoga. The body is not excluded, but at the same time, this part of the endeavor is the most difficult and doubtful. The rest, though not facile, is comparatively less difficult to accomplish. One must start with an inner control of the consciousness over the body, a power to make it obey more and more the will or the force transmitted to it. In the end, as a higher and higher force descends, and the plasticity of the body increases, the transformation becomes possible. It is absolutely idle to think of transforming the body when other things that are so much easier to do, though of course none is easy, are not done. The inner must change before the outermost can follow. So what is the use of such a concentration unless one thinks that everything else is perfect, which would be a rather astonishing claim? What has to be done with the body at first is to make it open to the force, so as to receive strength against illness and fatigue. When they come, there must be the power to react and throw them off, and to keep a constant flow of force into the body. If that is done, the rest of the bodily change can wait for its proper time. It has been the idea of many who have speculated on the subject that the body of the future race will be a luminous body, cor glorio, and that might mean radioactive. But it has to be considered, one, that a supramental body must necessarily be one in which the consciousness determines even the physical action and reaction to the most material, and these therefore are not wholly dependent on material conditions or laws as now known. 2. That the subtle process will be more powerful than the gross, so that a subtle action of Agni will be able to do the action which would now need a physical change, such as increased temperature. The fallacy of the argument, and this is in brackets, that after supramentalization severe attacks on the body will still be possible, end bracket, lies in the premise laid down in the beginning that even after supramentalization, difficulties and attacks will continue. In the supramental consciousness, such attacks are not possible. The coexistence of the supramental and the lower darkness in the same being and body is not possible. It is precisely for that reason that the supramentalization of the body consciousness is laid down as the condition of the successful transformation. If attacks continue and can come in successfully, it means that the body consciousness is not yet supramentalized. The physical sadhana is to bring down the higher light and power and peace and ananda into the body consciousness, to get rid of the inertia of the physical, the doubts, limitations, external tendency of the physical mind, the defective energies of the vital physical nerves, and bring in instead the true consciousness there, so that the physical may be a perfect instrument for the divine will. The food and care for the body is only to get it into good condition. Afterwards, it would not be necessary to attend to such things. Physical tamas in its roots can be removed only by the descent and the transformation, but physical exercise and regular activity of the body can always prevent a tamasic condition from prevailing in the body. The weakness of the body has to be cured, not disregarded. It can only be cured by bringing in strength from above, not by merely forcing the body. Namaste.